Okay, so this is, I have a cat somewhere underneath. This is why we call it a walkover. A walkover or the master key is the same thing in my terminology. Master key pattern, it's like a key. See, it looks like a key. Square, it looks like an elephant key, you know, one of them old keys. Here's the trunk, here's the ears. Okay, something like that. So that's going to take us to the next pattern. So that's review. Let's move along. So that's how you play the pentatonics now, is to use these patterns. So that we just apply that concept to what we've already got, right? So if we're going to do the pentatonic, let's say for the A, we're going to go 5, 6, root 2, 3. Okay, so the root 2, 3 brought us over here. We were in the A box. This is the important way to look at it. Not 5, 6, root 2, 3, 5, 6, because then you're going to want to go root 2, 3, 5, 6 again and again. We want to look at, we're starting in the A string shape. So A is built in the old style A is, so it's the top of an S3S, an S2L, and the bottom of bottom two strings of an S3S. Okay, so we play the top of an S3S, but now the top of the S3S long has the key over to the next cage. Okay, so we're starting on the A cage here. So here's our A, we're in the middle of the S3S, 5, 6, root 2, 3. Now we've gone to the next cage. From A, in the word cage, A goes to G. So we're in the G cage. We just finish our G build. And that would be, restarting the G build from here would be 6, root 2, 3, 5, 6, root 2, 3, 5, 6, root. So you can see how very important it is to pay attention to how we're building the scale. Don't do any guesswork. Sure, you know 5, 6 to root 2, 3. Then you could say, well, I'm in an S2. I can start over my S2, S3S there. And you can do that. You can make a little S3S ramp here. You can start here, 2, 3, 5, 6, root 2, 3, 5, 6, root 2, 3, 5, 6. You can do these little ramp patterns up and down the fretboard. But we want to get a little keener and work on these pentatonics that are in these modal boxes here. So when we go 5, 6, root 2, 3 from the A cage, we know that's going to take us to the G cage, because the word cage is spelled right here, C-A-G-E-D. So we're going from the A cage to the G build, which gives us 6 root. Here's our G build, 6, 7 root. This is our G box right here. It's longer, so we can possibly do a cutout if we want to go 6, 7, root 2, 3, 5, 6, like that. Do a bass string cutout on there. Now that's not normally done, but it's done. It is always done with the root cutout with the E shape. We always go root 2 and then over to the 3 to the 5 there. Okay, and also in the A cage we go 5, 6, root 2, 3, 5 in the pentatonic. So we're cutting out there in the A box also, and we cut out for the 7 in the diatonic too. So you can also do that with the G cage, even though it's not normally done, because the classic G cage pentatonic can be played open string, because we don't have to access the F sharp that's here, you know. We don't have to access that when we have the G pentatonic. Okay, So we don't normally do a bass string cutout for the G like that. We don't have to. If you don't have to play a long pattern, don't play it. You can play the pentatonic in the G shape open string. You can play the pentatonic in the A shape, in the C shape open string. That's your C. Okay, you can even go to the F there, but it's no longer open string, so you can access that E pentatonic. Okay, but we barred it with our finger, so it's still going. But we usually don't do that open. It'd be like something like. So what are you going to do? You're going to make a pentatonic scale advance. Now we're not spelling caged anymore. We're going caged backwards. G goes to the A shape. So instead of, you'll be going right over to the A shape. Okay, but we expand the cage for the G like that, just to take on that, just kind of extrapolate that bass string cutout there. So that's about it for pentatonics now. Hopefully we're going to be moving on to something a little more interesting. Okay, so let's see what we got in the next chart here. Okay, this was working with the cutouts, pentatonic cutouts. Now, I hope we explained what was going on here. Instead of the G string tripentatonic, instead of completing the next cage, we're going to be returning to the missing fifth. Okay, I haven't had a class on this, so we're going to have to look at this. We'll have a nice long class today if we can, so we can really just cover everything. Most important notes with the modal long pattern G string cutouts, most important is to play the open fret nut capo notes within each modal cage. In other words, why are we doing this? Why do you want to cut out? Why do you want to make the cage shorter? Because these cages are open string cages, and what happens with the open string cages, it sets us up for playing the E dot scale. Okay, when you're E tuned, such as this right here, this is an E. Close enough, right, for rock and roll. I didn't tune that. I'm having one of those days where I don't even care how well it's tuned. I didn't have to even adjust them. I just played, and that's it. I tuned the guitar to itself. You know, I didn't really take a long time trying to figure out is it exactly the same, because when something gets exactly the same, you know, there could be some really difficult to detect changes there, and maybe some interference. Alright, so what we have here, why are we doing this? Because we want to play, if you have the fret nut here, sorry you got distracted, but if you have the fret nut here, we have an E dot scale here, we have a dot scale here. So here's your E. The dot scale starts 2 whole steps down, just like my tuning. 2 whole steps down from E is C. So the C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. We can play in all of those keys. Key of C, key of D, key of E, key of F, key of G, key of A, key of B, key of C. All from this E note here. We can play in any one of those 7 keys. Okay, that's why we're doing this. So for instance, suppose we wanted to play in a Locrian key. I'm talking about a modal key here, right? A modal key. Well, actually no, it's in the key of the major key, actually. So let's look at the 4 here. If the fret nut was here, we could play in that E became the 4, alright? That means E is the 4th of what? E is the 4th of B. We